30 seconds.
Okay, so we're ready to go.
Is it live for sure?
Commercial.
No, not commercials. Get right on the
Open.
intro.
Open.
Welcome into Behind the Lines. I am Parker Terrell.
And I'm Alex Dusky.
We are here live from the beautiful campus of Oklahoma State here in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Alex, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, excited for another week back on the show to talk more about sports.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it. Obviously, our first segment is going to be about the Oklahoma State football game that happened this past Saturday, finally, against Tulsa.
Long awaited.
Alex, it was a tough game for the Cowboys. Not a lot of positives, especially in the first half. What's your overall take on this game, and what can you tell us in way of a recap?
So basically, everything that we expected did not happen, and things that we weren't expecting to happen did, like starting quarterback Spencer Sanders going out very early in the game with that high ankle injury. So that was something that was not expected at all, because then we had to go to our second and third string quarterbacks. Tulsa kind of gave us a run for our money. No one was really expecting them to show up and have as good of an offense as they did, but thankfully our defense was strong. Coach Gundy said earlier this week in player availability how impressed he was, and that he wasn't ever really concerned about the game because he knew that our defense was getting the stops that they needed to. So that's definitely a positive takeaway for sure.
Yeah, Alex, I think I agree with everything that you're saying, but I mean it's a disappointing start.
It was for sure, but at least we did win, and we are still ranked.
Hey,
We're
a
15th.
win's a win, but it's a disappointing start, and there's a lot to blame. For one person, I'm not going to blame. I'm not going to blame the defense. They played excellent.
No, they did
the
a great
defense
job.
that we talked up for weeks and weeks now. 10 of 11 returning starters. All these guys, a couple guys that may make it to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
They did their part and they did their job. However, the offense, especially the offensive line, just was not up to snuff, especially against this Tulsa team that was replacing almost every single starter
Mm-hmm.
on defense.
No one was expecting Tulsa to play as well as they did, and I think that's what really stunned the whole team.
Honestly, though, Alex, I agree with that, but last year Tulsa came out and did the same exact thing to us as they did this year. They were leading at halftime in last year's game. Mm-hmm. So I don't think there's any excuse. I don't like how there didn't seem to be a lot of energy with the team when they came out. And, of course, it's demoralizing when your starting quarterback goes down, especially so early in the game. But
no one even knew who the second string was. I've been talking about for weeks with player availability. Coach Gundy's talked about the second string receivers, running back, defensive players. No one's ever mentioned Bullock before. And when he came on the field, all of my friends were like, "Who is this guy?" And I was like, "I could not tell you." And so it was really the atmosphere at Boone Pickens changed drastically when Spencer went out.
Yeah, he's a guy. We're not going to pile on him, but
No.
He may need to take this game tape and just burn it. I mean, he had a really tough game. I believe he only had like 8 yards total offense in the 4 or 5 drives that he played. He's a guy that came in from junior college in the spring, so he doesn't have a lot of reps, didn't get to have a spring practice, didn't get to have much of a summer practice.
Exactly. Nothing was going his way.
But it's disappointing that Illingworth wasn't able to come in earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We may see some of his stats. Yeah, there they are. So he had an 80% completion percentage and 74 yards. He didn't have a touchdown, but obviously his pass is what set up that touchdown that Chuba Hubbard ran in. And without him coming in, I don't know if we win this game, Alex. He's a guy that was a 4-star true freshman coming out of California. He's a guy that a lot of the fans wanted to see, and that was apparent when he came onto the field to rip-roaring applause. But Again, it was disappointing that Gundy made that decision to go with Bullock over Illingworth, and I understand that there was not a lot of practice for Illingworth through
because
contact tracing.
Yeah,
but
he had missed 15 days prior practice because I believe originally Illingworth is supposed to be the second string starter, but because of that contact tracing, Gundy was not confident playing him at first.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. Again, Alex, as I said, I'm disappointed in how Chuba played. Again, it's a lot to do with the offensive line not making holes for him, but
LD was able to make
LD
some
Brown,
runs for sure.
he's a guy that I've seen on Twitter has gotten a lot of traction across the country because a lot of people are saying that he might be a guy that can go to the NFL. He showed a lot of burst. He showed a lot more patience behind the line of scrimmage, being able to find those holes with Chuba struggling. Another guy, it's a great sign to see for all Oklahoma State fans, is Tylan Wallace.
Oh, yeah. That catch that he had that's what really, it was Illingsworth, second or third drive being on the field, and he threw that deep pass to Tylan, and he was able to catch it, which was
Here's
really good.
I believe we have the pass right here. Yeah, here's Illingworth making that pass to Tylan. That's what got the offense really sparked. That's what really got him started. The next pass is when I believe they set him up for the touchdown. But it was a disappointing outing for the Cowboys. Hopefully they can bounce back this week in their first Big 12 game against West Virginia. Of course, we're going to talk to Adam Engel later in the show to preview that game. But when we come back, we're going to talk about the NFL and the Dallas Cowboys and their crazy comeback win. Stick with us here on Behind the Line.
Hi, I'm Will Joyce, the Mayor of Stillwater. As Mayor, it's my responsibility to help develop plans for a variety of resident needs, including roads, emergency services, and utilities. Some of those services are paid for with federal money that the government distributes to states and communities based on Census Bureau data. This is your tax money coming back to our community, but if you or your household aren't counted, we lose nearly $1,200 per person to places like Texas, Kansas, and Arkansas. So help bring that money back to local communities by filling out the 2020 census. This year, it's easy to do. You will receive a postcard in March 2020 with a unique code for your address. Using that code, simply go online, call, or request a paper copy of the census and fill it out. I want to make sure that you and your whole household are counted in the 2020 census. It's important not just to Stillwater, but to all of Payne County.
All right, welcome back to Behind the Line. Parker here with Alex. All right, Alex, he's talking about the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL. But first, let's talk about a few injuries that happened.
There were so many injuries. We could not talk about every single injury because I believe all 32 teams, if not close to it, had an injury of some sort. The 49ers-Jets game, that was at MetLife Stadium, so the Jets' home stadium. The 49ers are blaming the turf. It was wet, I believe, but they lost their running back. He's out for 2 to 4 weeks, confirmed. Quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo is a week-to-week basis with an ankle injury. And then their defensive end, Nick Bosa, is out for the entire season. Moving on to other key players, Giants running back Saquon Barkley is out for the season with a torn ACL, and then Panthers running back Christian McCaffrey is out 4 to 6 weeks with a sprained MCL. So it was just, this is kind of to be expected because of the lack of and the off-season practices and the shortened preseason, but it's just crazy. And we talked about on Monday's show that this is detrimental to the teams and also the fantasy teams, because those are key players, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley. And so all these NFL teams are scrambling to, fill these gaps.
Absolutely. It was a tough week in the NFL, and we'll see how they can bounce back next week. Hopefully there's not as many injuries. I do think that it has to do with there being no preseason. That really was a detriment to the teams. All right, let's talk about – go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
It's concerning, too, because, what if this does happen with the college football players, because they are in the same scenario as the NFL, and so we're just praying that all of our players can stay healthy, too.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. It was a tough day in the NFL, especially for some of the star players. All right, let's talk about the Cowboys. So they played the Falcons this past week, and for a lot of the game, we thought the Cowboys weren't going to pull it out, but they ended up getting a crazy game-winning field goal by Greg Zuerlein, Greg the Leg. Alex, what can you tell us about that game?
So
here it is right here.
Here's the onside kick.
This is actually the onside kick, yeah. Go ahead.
So this is something important to note is that the rule is that the kicking team can't touch it for it to go 10 yards, but the Falcons could have touched it sooner. And that's what people are just like mind boggled over. So if you see there, the Cowboys players are watching it very closely, and then as soon as it crosses that 10-yard line, they bounce on it and are able to retrieve the ball and then score the game-winning field goal as the clock runs out.
What an exciting game.
Something that I think is a really cool stat is that teams in the NFL that had at least 39 points and 0 turnovers, which the Falcons did have, were 440-0 winning their games. And yet the Falcons lost this game.
I mean, it's almost like I wish that I could say I'm surprised, Alex, but we've seen the Falcons choke in the biggest game of all time in the Super Bowl. So this is a tough loss for Dan Quinn and the Falcons. They have a lot of guys that are talented. They have a lot of guys that are first-round picks on their offense. I think they have the most ever first-round picks on their team starting. So they'll probably bounce back. But it's a great win for the Cowboys, who are now tied at the top of the NFC East with the Washington football team. Going back to the injuries, though, Alex, what do you think is the reason why? Do you think that it's the lack of preparation? Do you think that it's the lack of preseason games? Why do you think that all these star players are the ones that went down this week?
So I think it is to note the 49ers game, because it was, I believe they had at least 4 of their starters go out, and then the Jets had 2 or 3 starters go out. So that is most likely turf, and I think people are going to be looking into that more to see what could have caused that. But with Barkley and McCaffrey, they're the running backs, so they're running a lot, and those are both their knee injuries, which are pretty common for football players. ACL, MCL, the ones that you hear most about. It's tough to say, because yes, they didn't play as much, they didn't have that preseason prep, but you could say that when you start the preseason, why aren't they getting injured when they start the preseason? Because they've had that long break, of the summer. So it's baffling, really, because they should be taking the precautions to, they're stretching, they're warming up, and they are stars. They've been doing this for years now, and so the fact that so many people, it was a weird weekend for sure. First with Oklahoma State's football game against Tulsa, and then all the injuries on Sunday.
For sure. Hopefully these injuries start to go down with the more experience that they get, getting more and more playing time each week, and hopefully all the guys that were injured can recover. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about some golf, specifically the U.S. Open. Stick around here with Behind the Line.
Oh, there you go. Superstar.
The end of the practice is when we do all of our intensity drills.
Okay.
She was going at it.
Stop. If we get them to Detroit by, let's say Monday the 15th. Right there. There we go. Yeah. Just, you can't.
Don't want to talk about it.
When you see the water tower, you're gonna make a right.
If we win this, is the one way to get to the playoffs.
I know.
Welcome back to Behind the Line. This segment, as Parker previewed, will be talking about the U.S. Open that happened this weekend. There were 4 Oklahoma State alum playing in this tournament this past weekend. Most notably was Matthew Wolff. Parker, just tell me about it. You know, I don't know anything about golf, so fill me in on what happened.
Yeah, so a couple golfers from Oklahoma State, Matthew Wolff, Victor Hovland, and Alex Noren, they made the cut this week in one of the biggest tournaments in all of golf, the U.S. Open. It's one of the 4 majors. Here you see the graphic. These are what these were their final scores at the end of the tournament. But this was played at a course called Winged Foot in New York, Mamaroneck, New York. It's one of the hardest courses in the country. Matthew Wolff, Oklahoma State golfer, he was an NCAA champion, team and individual. He was a guy that had the lead, the 54-hole lead. So he had the lead after Saturday's round, I believe 5 under. And then on Sunday, he just had a really tough day, Alex. I believe he shot, can we get the graphic again to show? But I believe he shot like something like 5 over on Saturday or on Sunday, losing the championship to Bryson DeChambeau, who was a guy who golfed at Southern Methodist University or SMU, who really ran away with the tournament.
Do you know if there's something like why Wolff had such a tough time on Sunday?
I think it boils down to pressure, Alex. This is the biggest tournament of his life. He was able to sleep on that lead, and I just think that he just didn't have what it takes. He's a really young guy. He's only 21, so excuse me. I'm not going to call it a choke because he's so young, but
right.
I think that he'll learn from this experience, and he'll be able to come back and compete in Augusta at the Masters later on in November.
What else is next for him? You know, he said, there's a quote by him that said, you know, second in his first PGA, or in one of the biggest PGA tournaments, is nothing to, you know, hang his head about. He's really excited about that. So, you know, being able to go off of the 2019 NCAA championship and then coming in second at the U.S. Open, like, what's next for him? Ooh.
Yeah, he played at the PGA championship back in September. And I believe he finished like tied for 4th. So that was his first major. And then again, he finished second in this one. So he played really well. I hope that he continues to play well. He's a guy that has a ton of talent. He's just got to put it all together on a Sunday with the lead, Alex. Another guy is Victor Hovland. He struggled early in the week, but he was able to rebound into the weekend and play better. And a guy named Alex Noren. He played at Oklahoma State earlier. I believe he played at like 2006, 2007. He's a guy that's older on the tour, but he was able to play well again on Saturday, finishing, I think, with the second lowest score to Wolff at 3 under. Again, they're showing that. The scores may show that they didn't do great, but again, as I said, that this course is one of the hardest in the world.
I believe Tiger Woods made a comment this weekend too, saying that it was definitely the hardest one that he's ever played at.
Yeah, and Tiger played, he did not play well either. He missed the cut this week, and he's never done well at Winged Foot. But
what makes it such a difficult course for all these golfers?
Yeah, it's just narrow fairways, and like topsy-turvy greens just make this one of the craziest courses, I think, in America. It's one of the oldest, but a lot of the golfers will say that this is a tough course, and they'll say that this was a really tough week. They call it, they say that they're so ready to go away from this course, and they're ready to be done with it. And I believe Matt Wolff is willing to say the same thing because it really turned him for a loop on Sunday. I'm excited to see what he can do in Augusta. I'm excited to see what Hovland can do. He finished as the low amateur last year at Augusta when he still was a student here at Oklahoma State and golfing for the team. So he knows that course pretty well, and I think that he'll be able to play really well coming up in Georgia at Augusta. We'll see how Matt Wolff does. He's a guy that really has played well in majors. He's really played well when the spotlight is on him. Again, I said that he won the NCAA individual title, and so he's a guy that seems to step up when the spotlights are on. Unfortunately, he just couldn't get it done this week. A lot of OSU fans I saw were excited. They were excited to see what he can do, and they were a little bit disappointed. But as I said, he's young. He's only 21 years old. He'll have plenty of other major opportunities and plenty of other chances at U.S. Opens with possibly a lead to be able to get the job done.
For sure. We'll have to keep up with Matthew Wolff going into the rest of his career. Right after this break, we will have Adam Engel on to preview this week's Oklahoma State game. We'll be right back.
There you go. Superstar.
The end of the practice is when we do all of our, like, intensity drills.
Okay.
She was going at it.
Stop. If we get them to Detroit by, let's say like Monday the 15th. Right there. There we go. Yeah. Just, you can't.
Don't want to talk about it.
When you see the water tower, you're gonna make a right.
If we win this, is the one way to get to the playoffs.
I know.
Welcome back to Behind the Line. We are here with Adam Engel. Thank you for joining us today, Adam.
No problem. Happy to be here.
All right, so this Saturday, Oklahoma State plays West Virginia here at home again. West Virginia is coming off of a bye week after they opened their season with a win over Eastern Kentucky, 56-10. What should Cowboy fans expect for this game? You know, who should we watch from both sides of the ball?
Well, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and start with Oklahoma State players to watch. I have two players, of course, offense and defense. Both of them are Oklahoma natives, Dylan Stoner and Malcolm Rodriguez. If you look back a week ago, Dylan Stoner, 3 receptions, 14 yards versus Tulsa. Right. He is a leader of this team on and off the field. He is praised for his enthusiasm and leadership skills. He really stood out, though, as a punt returner. Remember that 36-yard punt return he had? And then his celebration after that just kind of goes to show his enthusiasm for this team. He is so happy to put on that OSU uniform every Saturday. But the other thing, though, his talent, I think, is overshadowed by that stacked Cowboy wide receiver core with, Tylan Wallace and Landon Wolf. But he is a very valuable player. I expect him to have a strong performance Saturday. Now, defensively, let's look out for the pride of Wagner, Oklahoma, senior Malcolm Rodriguez. I believe he will record another fantastic game. If you remember last week against Tulsa, 10 tackles, 2 of which were for a loss to go along with a sack, right? So I think Malcolm Rodriguez will have another fantastic game, and not to mention the defense, right?
Right.
There's Rodriguez, but what about Trey Sterling, Kobe Harvell-Peel?
Right.
Tanner McAllister had a wonderful game last week as well. So that's for Oklahoma State. Now for West Virginia, that's where things get a little interesting. The player to watch, in my opinion, for the offense is redshirt junior Jarrett Dagey, the quarterback out of Lubbock, Texas. Now, here's the thing. He is a transfer. He's played 2 years, his freshman, sophomore year at Bowling Green University in the MAC. In 2018, he led the MAC with passing touchdowns and passing yards. In the summer of 2019, transferred over to Morgantown, West Virginia. Took a red shirt, but he still was able to play 4 games because remember, unlike basketball and other sports, football players can play up to 4 games and still maintain that red shirt status. But he had a monster performance 2 weeks ago against Eastern Kentucky, 19 for 25, 228 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. In the 4 games last season, 7 touchdowns for 818 yards with 3 interceptions. But here is where things get really interesting, right? The positives, his passing. But this is a very negative. Here's the kryptonite for Jarrett Dagey through his 2 seasons at Bowling Green and his redshirt season at West Virginia. He's played a total of 24 games, right? Rushing, negative 303 rushing yards. Let me say that again. negative 303 rushing yards, sacked 50 times in 24 games. So with that, obviously for Oklahoma State, something that they need to do is get pressure to Jarret Doege because we know that he has a strong arm. We know that Jarret Doege can throw the ball. But if that defense plays like they did against Tulsa, it will be a long, long game for Jarret Doege. Now, defensively, to look out for the Mountaineers is Vandarius Cowan, a bandit. The bandit linebacker, similar to the Oklahoma State Cowboy back. It's a hybrid, right? A defensive end linebacker hybrid. He is also a transfer redshirt junior. Well, I mean, not immediately a transfer, but he started his career actually with the University of Alabama, right? So he started there as a true freshman, played 7 games as a true freshman. He transferred to West Virginia in 2018. Then he had to sit out as a transfer.
Right.
He was injured last season, so he started the 2 games. He started well, but against Iowa State, he was injured, and unfortunately, had to sit out the rest of the season. So he is coming back for a very healthy redshirt junior season. Now, with a sack and a tackle for loss, he makes plays all over the field. If you remember, Week 1 against Eastern Kentucky, 4 tackles, 2 of which were for loss to go at the sack and a forced fumble. So, Vandarius Cowan is going to be a threat in the backfield for Sanders if he is healthy, or Illingworth in this OSU offensive line. They're definitely going to have a challenge.
Absolutely, Adam. So, can you give us a prediction? What do you think is going to happen this week?
Score-wise?
Yes.
Okay. Here's my prediction: 27-17 Oklahoma State. And I'm going to be specific with how they score those points. 3 touchdowns, 3 complete extra points, and Alex Hale will have another fantastic game. Kicking-wise, he goes 2 for 2 from the field goal perspective.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to Behind the Line. We appreciate all the viewers. Check us out at Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and Apple TV, and Suddenlink Channel 112. We'd like to thank Adam Engel, our OSU insider, for coming on and giving us so much great information about OSU and about West Virginia. Again, thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next Wednesday at 2:45. Thank you for sticking with us on Behind the Line. Have a great day.